Hello, and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell, and behind the camera is
Jared Lovelady.
And we're here to talk about all things creative. And we have a guest returning with us today again.
Hello, good to be here.
And this is Liz Verity for those joining us. And Liz has some really cool insights into different stuff.
Different stuff, mostly having to do with books because I'm
Yes.
a nerd. So.
Mostly books. Mostly books. In fact, Liz helped us with editing, she gave us a lot of tips and a lot of suggestions on A Flight from Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as Jared pointed out, I didn't say anything about Flight from Shadows on our last 2 episodes. So go get A Flight from Shadows. We are making progress on book 2. We're way behind where we wanted to be, but unless somebody can be a philanthropist and give us a lot of money so we don't have to have full-time jobs, then it's going to be slower than what we want sometimes.
Yes, that's how everything with writing works. Is it's always slower than you think it's going to take.
Yeah. Unless, well, like Stephen King, we've talked about him before. Unless you just have several hours, if you're like, this is my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to just write. Then you can put a book out every 3 months.
Yes, if it's a short book. Probably not the size books you guys write, though.
I don't know. His books are pretty long books.
Yes. But
But
we've talked about how his plots are a little bit of a mess, though. So,
Well,
like,
yeah,
I'm not sure how much he goes back and edits.
But that's what he pays his team to do.
True.
So.
Yes.
But even so Brandon Sanderson, 2020 and 2021. When did he do his Kickstarter?
I don't remember.
It was either late 21 or early 22 when he started it. And he had been offline. Like he was essentially gone for all of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Like not visible anywhere. And then he came back and was like, hey, I've been away and I'm doing this Kickstarter. And for the Kickstarter, I want to tell you. And he pulled up 5 manuscripts
Yes.
that were like 900 pages, for each one.
Yes.
So I'm like,
It's
if
easy
that's
to
just
write
all
the
you
first
do.
draft. Yeah, so the first draft, not hard, but he has an editing team that goes back and
Yeah.
does his line edits and his developmental edits, and I'm sure he gives input on it, but I'm not sure how much he really goes back and
like
does it
rereads
himself.
everything.
Yeah. So like if you're talking about just throwing out a first draft of a book, you can easily get that done in like a month or 2.
Yeah. But that's I guess our first draft was done and now like
Yeah, it's the editing that stumps everyone.
it just takes so long.
The pesky little details.
Well, we're making progress.
We are making progress.
In the new chapter that we added that we didn't know we were going to add.
Yeah.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, we were going through and we were just like, we really need this other piece in here. Because we have book 1, we're, in A Flight from Shadows, we follow Tawara.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Tawara's perspective and Athandra's perspective. And then we jump a little bit into a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person, just insights into things that are developing.
Yeah.
Well, when we get into book 2, we realize we're like, wait a minute, we've already kind of started following these other characters. And if they're going to be characters, we need to know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Got to keep up with them.
And we need to know, like, it's important to the plot. And if they're going to be important to the plot as well. So we're like, we need to put a chapter right here. And that's where we're at.
Sounds good.
I don't know.
I mean, books have a way of expanding as you go, so
Yeah.
that's probably going to keep going as you do the series. You're going to add more people, and you're going to have to fill in their perspectives, and the books are going to get bigger, and yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot. Like we said, I would like it to be like a 7-year commitment to finish everything out, but we may have signed up for like a 20-year commitment.
Yeah.
Too much time, so much work.
Yes. Well, who knows? Maybe by like book 5, you'll hit it big, and then you can knock the rest out in a couple of years because you'll have no other job.
Yeah, let's hope. So everybody go buy the book, tell your friends, buy 2 copies just to make it go bigger.
Yeah. Give one away to somebody else.
Yes, exactly. And then after you give that away, go buy another one and give that away. Go start knocking on doors and of your neighbors, and when they open the door, be like, "Hi, we'd like to talk to you about A Flight from Shadows." See how that goes. Give it a shot.
Man.
A little proselyting there.
Yeah, yeah. So Liz, you have, again, we have done a couple of episodes so far with you. We have our Learning with Liz.
Yeah.
We always like to learn something new when you come and visit us. So what do you have today that you would like for us to learn, or for anybody listening to learn about?
Yeah, so I thought maybe today we could talk about log lines and taglines.
Okay.
It's kind of a fun topic for both writers and readers. So essentially, a log line is kind of like, as a writer, it's what you would use to pitch to someone. So if somebody comes up and says, "What's your book's about?" whether it's an agent, an editor, or a reader, it's kind of a 1, maybe 2 sentence synopsis of like what the core concept of your book is. So that's a log line. And then a tagline is kind of like your catchphrase, so to say. Like if you look at movie posters or the front book of covers, they'll sometimes have just this short, like maybe 5-word or I don't know, almost attention grabber.
Yeah.
And so that is the tagline that gets readers interested to be like, "Oh, what's this?" And they pick it up and they read the back to see what the book's about.
So like the first Alien movie, one of the lines that it was in the trailer, and then they put it on the movie posters. I think they put it on the movie posters and stuff, and it was just, "In space, no one can hear you scream."
Yes, yeah.
So that would be a
That's
tagline.
the tagline, yes.
Okay.
Probably the best one I think ever
I know,
written.
I love that
love
one.
it, yeah. It's
So
very,
good.
very evocative of emotion, and it plays on words because everybody always says, "Oh, no one can hear you scream." Like they always say
Yeah.
that before something bad happens.
Yeah.
And that's like a literal fact in space. Like it's a vacuum.
Yeah.
You can't hear sound. So it's just that sense of helplessness and horror, and all in just one little phrase.
Wait. So you're saying all the explosions in Star Wars and movies and all that, we can't actually hear that?
No,
'Cause
yeah.
do we hear that?
It should not have been in there, but for dramatic effect, it's very nice.
Okay. Just getting that clarification
Yes.
before we move on.
Um,
Okay, so log lines, taglines. So why are those important? Are they necessary? And if not, if they are necessary, why? If not, how do they help?
So, for authors, log lines are very important because whether you want to be a traditionally published and go through an agent publisher, or you just want to sell to your readers, it's important to be able to say what your book's about in a little part. And you just spent this whole time writing 900 pages of a book.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to boil it down to a simple concept that readers can get excited about. So in that, you usually throw out the character, your protagonist, the conflict, the stakes, and then in a tagline, it's mostly just emotional because you're trying to get that attention. So taglines are not as necessary. I would say I think they're good to have because they are those attention grabbers. Like if you're at a con and you have an author table and you're trying to sell or something, having that tagline on your table or being able to say it to someone kind of like piques their interest, and they're like, "Oh, like, okay, so what's it about?" kind of thing. So I think it's a good selling aspect. You don't necessarily have to have one to sell your book, but I think they're fun.
Would it work because we don't have a tagline? So Jared, we should make a note that we need a tagline
Yes.
for cons and stuff.
Tagline, yes. What we need more than that is a log line.
But but we do. Well, if we can't come up with a tagline, do you think it would work if we just put "In space, no one can hear you scream"?
Well, you're going to have one of two people. You're going to have somebody who picks up the book excited because it's about aliens, or you're going to have someone upset because you stole a tagline from their favorite movie.
Okay.
So maybe not the best.
But either way, it will draw people to the table, which is what we want, right?
I don't know if we want to draw them under false pretense.
Yeah, maybe not.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about, you said you don't have one. So let's talk a little bit about how you can make them. So log lines.
So just a real quick,
Mm-hmm.
so we've tried to get down to like on the back of our book, we have like this kind of overall summary, which would be kind of like the 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, it's your book blurb is what I call it.
Yeah, the blurb. So the log line needs to be significantly shorter than this.
Yes. So a log line is generally just a sentence, maybe two. You usually, I would say probably less than 30 words. But it's pretty short. And it covers four things. So you'll have the protagonist, and you don't name your protagonist because like no one cares who Bill is.
Yeah.
They want to know that, the amateur chef or whatever. They want to know an adjective and a descriptive noun of what that person is. So it could be like an 18-year-old rebel or something like that. Like you want something that's going to give a person an idea of what person they're going to be following in the book.
Yeah.
And then you want their goal of the book. So if it's a heist, to steal a treasure or to solve a murder, whatever it is that the main external goal of the plot is, that's what you want. And then you do the stakes, because every reader they want a book that matters. They want the meaning behind it. And without the stakes, it's just, okay, like, Bill wants to steal this treasure. So what? Yeah. So you want to know kind of like what's at stake. If he doesn't steal it, it'll fall into, the Nazis' hands and they'll use it to expand their power over people or something like that. Like you want some sort of...
They might find the aliens first.
Yes, they might get to those ships to get, those aliens first. So anyway, so protagonist, goal, stakes, and then conflict. So usually that shows up in the form of like the antagonist. So, and that example, the Nazis are the conflict. They're the antagonists. They're the ones we're going to be working against the whole time. So you just want to make sure that there's that sense of opposition. Because again, if you have a story of Bill wants this treasure to save the world, but nobody's trying to hurt the world, then it's kind of also a silly story. So,
yeah.
But those four concepts can kind of give a person an understanding of, okay, this is the person I'm going with. This is the journey I'm going on. These are the hurdles we're going to get over. And this is why it matters.
Yeah. I was trying to think of different examples while like put into thoughts what you were saying. Like as you were saying it, thinking like, okay, how does this apply to different scenarios or different stories? So I was trying to think, okay, we have the character, the description of the character, not their name, and then whatever it is they're going to do, and then the conflicts. And so I was thinking like Little Mermaid.
Yes.
You wouldn't say Ariel is going to blah, blah, blah. You would say like the Little Mermaid. And I'm just trying to pull this off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
Like the Little Mermaid would give anything to become human and marry her true love.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sea Witch has other plans, or there's probably a better way to say it. This is me rough drafting. This is why you go through edits.
Yeah, this is good. It's good for people to hear. Like this is how we have to kind of find the bones of our story. So we have Ariel, the Little Mermaid. You can throw in, I think she's 16. You could say like the 16-year-old Little Mermaid or something like that to kind of give a concept of what age you're following or some sort of descriptive. Or you just call her a mermaid if you want. Her goal is to become human and marry the prince.
Yeah.
The antagonist, like
maybe it's Scuttle.
Well,
he like screws things up a lot. Maybe
but
he's the antagonist.
Who's standing in the way of her getting her goal? What's the reason she can't get up there?
Yeah, at the beginning, her father is in
exactly.
the way.
Yeah, he's the whole reason the story happens. If he would have just been like, yeah, sure, you can go be a human for a while, because at the end of the movie, he can turn her into a human, so he has that ability, but he doesn't allow her to, and that's why she takes Plan B, goes to Ursula, gets messed up, and all this jazz.
Yeah.
So, so you have
actually in the beginning, she wasn't even planning on marrying Eric.
She just wants to be human. She just wants
Well-
to be up in the world.
Well, she kind of daydreams about being part of that world.
Mhm.
She just wants to collect all the things, oozits and whatsits galore.
Yeah, she wants to
you know?
experience the human world. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So although she's like, she has the statue and is like, hey, you know, it's the movie, it's not the
Yeah, it's not the
original.
actual.
But still,
fairy
we're
tale.
going off the movie.
Hans Christian Andersen did a different
it's,
version.
It's the movie right now. She didn't have green skin, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, she has the statue of Eric that she's, you know, she saves him. She gets the statue from Flounder. And then is like, Eric, you're so handsome, you know, and everything. But it's more like this flighty dream of she wants to experience the human things, but I don't think she ever had a plan of, I want to become a human. You know,
Yeah, I think she
just didn't
She
want the
wanted to-
separation between humans
yeah.
and
So she wanted
her
to
world.
experience that world.
yeah,
Eric comes later
yeah,
because you know it's a princess. We gotta have a love story. At least back then.
yeah.
Nowadays they're getting a little bit better about it. But yeah, so a log line for it would kind of more or less go like a 16-year-old mermaid wants to experience life on the surface, but her father believes that she's safer underwater. So she makes a deal with the sea witch that might cost, or so it's kind of like her dream might cost the life under the sea,
Yeah.
because
Because the sea witch's plan is
yeah,
not,
her
I
plan
want
is to take over.
yeah,
the
her
sea.
plan is take the
Yeah.
trident and become King
So
Triton.
yeah, so that's what it stakes is by chasing her goal, life under the water may be in jeopardy for
Yeah.
all those under there. So it's kind of like in order to save the world, she has to kind of overcome that. Boiling it down to a log line is kind of hard when you can't write it down right now, though.
Here, we got a notebook
You got to know
right here. We can be like Little Mermaid.
yeah. So
Yeah, here. So we've got the little 16-year-old mermaid
okay.
who wants to experience human life or experience what it's like, something like that.
Okay, so a 16-year-old mermaid wants to, we're gonna say, experience life on the surface.
On the yep, that sounds good. Of the moon.
The surface
Because
of
in
the moon.
space no one can hear you
Okay.
scream.
We're gonna bring everything back to the alien.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the protagonist and the goal, and then we throw in the handy dandy but conflict and stakes. So
So the initial thing, everything, what the catalyst that sets everything into motion is, but her father is against anything to do with humans or
but
something.
yeah. So but her father hates humans or
Calls them
doesn't trust her
terrible
with humans.
harpooning fish eaters. I haven't seen this movie in years, but I'm like nailing these quotes.
Yes, you are. So we'll say, but her father stands
Spineless. That's what he
in
calls them.
the
Spineless harpooning fish eaters. But I was close. So yeah, that's like I hadn't thought about the original protagonist was her father.
antagonist.
Or antagonist was her
Yes.
father, and maybe a little bit Sebastian. I guess maybe Sebastian is an extension of her father.
Yeah, say he's kind of an obstacle. Like, yeah, I have to get past this one, but then once she does, he's almost kind of like a helper. Like, okay, I'll sneak around behind your father's back and help you out, kind of thing. So
I
he's
think
like
they all have.
a
There's different
sidekick
points
and an
where they're.
antagonist.
Yeah, they all have different points where they are sidekicks or antagonists.
Yeah.
Because Sebastian goes to her, rats her out. First he's against her, then he rats her out, and then he helps her try to win over Eric. Scuttle introduces her to all the human stuff to begin with, plants the story in her head, gets the whole idea going, and then like messes things up when he's like, they need some music. And then he's like, wah, wah, wah.
Yes.
But then Sebastian comes back and becomes the sidekick again when he's like, There you see her sitting there across the way, you know.
Yeah.
And then Flounder, he's obviously a sidekick.
Yes.
But even he goes to her father. And he
Yes.
messes up. He's the
He-
one that gets her in
he
trouble
says
in the
the
first
wrong
place when he's
thing,
like,
yeah.
and then the seagull came and said, this is this and that is that. And that's when her father's like, Seagull, you
was
went to
on
the
the
surface
surface."
again.
Yes.
Like, gosh, Flounder, you ruined the whole thing. That one sentence, you just couldn't keep your little puffer fit or whatever, your flounder guppy mouth shut.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so what do you got so far?
Okay, so we have a 16-year-old mermaid wants to experience life on the surface. And then I have two conflicts. I'm not sure. We have, but her father stands in the way of her mixing with humans. Or we have, but humans don't mix with mermaids. So whether or not you want to throw the father in there, or if you just want to say there's a clear line between humans and mermaids that she's not supposed to cross.
Yeah.
And then, but to get her dream, it might cost her the world under sea, or I don't know how you would say that, life under the water.
Yeah, for her dream to, or it's not just for her dream to come true. Her attempt to make her dream come true may cost
Yes.
all life under the sea.
Okay, so, but her dream may cost.
Yeah, just the dream itself. The fact that it's not just a fancy, it's something she's pursuing.
Okay. So, real rough draft that I would not present to an editor, but for this purposes. So, a 16-year-old mermaid wants to experience life on the surface, but humans and mermaids are not allowed together. But in order to chase her dream, it may cost life under the sea. I don't know. That's super rough. It'll take some honing, but you get the concept of,
Yeah.
these are the things you have to identify and then boil it down to. So just for fun, I have a couple log lines that I stole that were actually used
Okay.
by authors. It's pretty obvious which ones they mean, but I'm going to read them anyways and see if you guys can guess which ones they are.
Okay. Does any of them have to do with space and not?
No, I did not
Okay.
pick that one. Although I will
Or no,
tell
we
you,
said that's a tagline now.
yeah, that's a tagline. But the log line for aliens is literally, what is it? Jaws in space.
Really?
That's what they use for the log line. So
I mean, it's not bad, but
yes, and that's the thing. Like, if you are going to base your story heavily off of another tale, you can do that.
yeah,
If you want to boil it all the way down, like, you don't have to do this. If it's kind of more original and you're not pulling heavily from like a fairy tale or something, then you want these 4 points. But like, you can do that. So if you think of The Lion King, it's Hamlet with lions.
yeah,
You think of what's that one? The one with the blue people in space.
Avatar.
Avatar. So that is Pocahontas in space.
Yeah.
Like, so you kind of have like these, they're basically pulling from other stories, and then it tells you what the setting is, or what makes it unique from that original story, because people love retellings.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a way you can do a logline if you're leaving heavily on another story.
I'm not sure that like as we quote unquote progress in the story world or in like storytelling,
Yeah.
movies and whatnot, I wonder how much that, like when you said Jaws in space, I was like picturing something along the lines of Sharknado. Like that's what came to like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to actually put Jaws in space.
Yes.
You know, actually, I think there is one of the Sharknadoes
Oh, I wouldn't
where
be
it's
surprised.
tornadoes go to space. I think there's
No idea. I've seen about 10 minutes of the original. That was enough.
Yeah.
hey, I think there's like four
Yeah.
or five Sharknado, but I think one of them is the tornadoes of sharks in space. So when you say of like Jaws in space, if you're saying no, it's a reference, but you might be like, no, really, that
Actually,
Jaws in space,
Yes.
where no one can hear you scream except Jaws.
Yes. Sharknado 3 is in space.
Yeah,
oh,
see,
there we go.
I thought I remembered there being a space Space Shark Tornadoes.
Yes, yeah, but that probably came out after Alien, I'm assuming.
But
Yeah.
Like back in,
Oh, yeah.
back in the time, like when they said it, it probably
well,
wasn't.
it
But it
came out
probably
what,
applies
like
more.
07?
Yeah.
Something like that?
It's called Oh Hell No, and it came out in 2015.
Oh, 15.
Okay,
Wow, it's
yeah.
even later than I thought.
Super recent. Well, 10 years ago. I guess it's not really super recent, but I feel like that's super recent.
Yeah. Like, wow, that's 10 years ago. Holy crap.
Okay, so log lines. We have a 16-year-old huntress volunteers to take her sister's place in a publicized life or death game where only one of 24 children will survive.
A Christmas Carol.
Yes, no.
No, that's obviously Hunger Games.
Yes, yeah. But you can see how they boil it down. You have a 16-year-old huntress. We have the conflict, which... So one thing about the conflict is you usually pull the inciting incident, whatever puts the story into practice. So like in Our Little Mermaid, it was the fact that dad says no and she really wants to go.
Yeah.
So here it's the sisters volunteering for the games. Then of course you have what's at stake, 24 children's lives, you know, only one's going to survive. So
Yeah.
you have those 4 points. Okay, next one. I'm going to say 3 words and you'll probably have it at that point. A meek hobbit from the Shire inherits the powerful One Ring and sets out on a journey with 8 companions to destroy the ring and save Middle-earth from the Dark Lord.
Yeah, that's...
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So the Lord of the Rings. So yeah, it seems basic. Like when you put it down, you're thinking like, this is so generic. It could be anything. But when you actually read it out, like if you know the story, it immediately will tell you what the story is. So
yeah.
it feels generic when you're putting it down. You're like, oh my goodness, like this doesn't say anything about my story. You know, like in our log line, we didn't even mention Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it feels like it's not right, but when you actually boil it down to that, it does tell you what the story is.
Okay. And so with that, that's what you're really trying to get to is, you know, you don't want any, I would say, any level of detail whatsoever in this. You want it to be as generic a statement as possible while capturing the essence of not who, but what the main character is about,
Yes.
what their goal is, and what's trying to stop them, and then what's at stake.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So that is the key to a log line. Now, if we transition into taglines, their whole point is to basically provoke emotion and curiosity. So it's all about picking the strong adverbs, the strong nouns, and being able to also convey the tone of your story. So like in Jaws, No One Can Hear You Scream, it's clearly a scary movie.
Yeah.
So that gives you the tone of it so that people know, okay, that's not what I want to do, or that is what I want to do. So you want to make sure that it grabs attention that way.
So this is, the tagline is the person with the big arrow sign in a costume spinning it in front of your building.
Yes. Yeah. It's the big flashy sign. Look at me. Look at me.
Yeah.
Ask a question and I'll tell you what it's really about, kind of thing. Like that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So a tagline isn't as formulaic as a logline. It isn't like these are the 4 points you throw into it. But there is some techniques you can use to grab attention. So one is you can ask a question, get people thinking. I can't remember the exact one, but I had an author, I was talking to her about her book, and her tagline was something like, if killing one life would save everyone else, would you do it?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So it's kind of like that thought-provoking, like, oh, I don't know. It gets them thinking, and then they're like, well, what is this about?
Yeah.
So they kind of want to ask more. Another way is that you can kind of do a play on words to take something in an unexpected way, basically. So one of the examples I have for that is The Good Demon, which I have not read this book, but I liked the tagline. It says, we all have demons. Claire wants hers back. So, like, we all have demons. That's what we say. We have regrets. We have things we wish we hadn't done. But then she says she wants hers back. So clearly she's not talking about that. These are literal demons probably in the story.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives that, like, unexpected twist to something familiar. So that's another technique. And then
Maybe it's disenchanted.
Or the Golden Compass. They have don't they call them demons? They're little
yes,
pets.
yeah, you're
yeah.
right. The familiars or whatever.
Yeah.
The pets that are linked to them. Yep.
Yeah, so there's a number, like, without knowing what that's about, the good deed, like, at all.
Yeah, it's clearly a specific thing and not a concept, but we don't know what it is.
Like, when it says we all have demons, maybe she's actually talking about a world in which everybody has demons.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of gets you thinking of all
Yeah.
these ways, and you pick up the book to look at the back blurb kind of thing and be like, okay, what is this really about?
Yeah.
So it's a attention grabber. The last way, well, it's not the last technique, but it's the last main technique that I've found for a tagline is to create a sentence that contradicts itself. So it in itself gives a sense of conflict. So one is the inheritance games. It says, she came from nothing. They have everything. Let the games begin. So you immediately know you have someone who has had a hard life, someone who's had an easy life, and they're thrown into a similar situation. They're competing for something.
Yeah.
And so you know there's going to be conflict, and it's going to probably get good.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get that thrilling aspect of that book.
I'm trying to think. I've heard of that. I don't remember if I've read any of the inheritance games.
So it's actually a YA thriller.
Okay.
I think it's 3 books. But yeah, it's essentially where she inherits money from like one of the wealthiest men in the world, and nobody knows why. And in order to keep the inheritance, she has to do specific things, and all of that person's heirs are trying to get her to fail because they want the money if she fails. So it's this big twisty turny kind of story.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Somebody must have mentioned it. I was trying to think because I couldn't think of what the plot was. And then when you said thriller, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I haven't read it. I don't know what the plot is, but I remember somebody mentioning it to me at one point.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I liked it. I did read that one.
Okay.
So those are kind of taglines. And you can do fun things with taglines. Like each book can have, whatever tagline you want. But one of my favorite things is when in a series, they make them almost flow together.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought this up before because I love this series, but the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Not his new covers, which annoys me, but his original covers had taglines on each of the 5 books. And if you read it, it tells a story and it's circular. Which is really cool. So when you put them all together, it makes this fun little thing. So I wrote those down to share. So book 1 is Every Light Casts a Shadow. Book 2 is Every Shadow Hides a Secret. 3 is Every Secret Holds a Truth. 4 is Every Truth Bears a Legend. And 5 is Every Legend Shines a Light, which then takes you back to book 1. Every light casts a shadow.
Yeah.
So it's like this circular, but it gives you this sense of a grander purpose, which it's an epic fantasy series. So it's all about the big ideas and all that kind of stuff. So it's very fitting for it. But in itself, like if you read the first book, Every Light Casts a Shadow, it kind of makes you think. You're like, like I wonder what he's hiding, because clearly that's what they're alluding to, is something's being hidden.
Yeah.
But it's not like super evocative, like in Space No One Hears You Scream.
Yeah.
But when you put them all together, it makes it a really cool display.
Yeah.
So you can have fun with it.
Yeah. I remember the tagline for the first Alien. I don't remember the tagline for any of the other Alien movies.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm not sure if I'm sure they had one, but I don't know. Maybe they didn't.
Yeah,
Maybe they
Jared's going to look it up for us and see
It's gonna work
if
on
there are other. Maybe it's like in space, no one can hear you scream, and then it's like every time someone screams, more aliens come, and then the next one is and more, and then the next one is
more.
and more.
And more. Yes, pretty much.
Anything? Okay, he'll tell us when
Okay.
if he finds one.
So we talked.
Not
ahead.
finding one for 2, but for Resurrection, it's been more than 200 years. The beginning has just started.
Okay.
The beginning is just started.
Has just started.
Has just started.
It's the beginning of the invasion or
Yeah.
whatever.
I don't know, that was kind of an odd reading tagline.
Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue smoothly, which
No.
is kind of beats the purpose.
And then for Romulus, they went looking for a new life. It found them.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's good.
Yeah, and it fits. It fits well with Romulus.
Yes. Yeah. So loglines and taglines, they're super fun. I do not have a tagline on my current work in progress because I am not set on it yet, so it's hard to pick something that's gonna be the biggest component of it that's gonna draw people in.
Yeah.
But I did write a logline for it back when I was pitching it and stuff, so I can share that, and then if you want, we can maybe brainstorm one for you guys or a tagline for you guys for
Yeah,
your book.
because we haven't ever come up with either. We just said, hey, everybody, we have a book.
Yeah.
Go buy it. And then they're like, what is it about? I'm like, well, sit down in this chair and we can pour you a drink and let's have a talk.
Let me tell you all about it. That's the hardest thing, honestly, as a writer. Like, non-writers will never understand how difficult it is to write this elaborate, giant book where everything in it is necessary for the story.
Yeah.
And then try to boil it down to one sentence or even just 2 paragraphs for the back of your book to be able to convey the story that way. It's a muscle you really have to exercise to figure out.
Yeah, there's a meme that the text at the top is, writers, would you rather write your blurb or fight a bear? And then the next picture is from like some show in the 70s where a guy's like fighting a bear. It's like, yep, pretty much.
Yep, taking down the bear. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's hard. Okay, so my logline is: an ambitious profiler, a cocky con artist, and a streetwise shapeshifter are recruited for a clandestine team that must gain an aristocrat's trust and stop his plot to topple the 5 museums. So I have a cast of characters, and I do have one that is a little bit more important to the plot than the others, but all 3 are very key to the whole thing. So I decided to throw all 3 in. But if you have a huge cast, you can obviously just pick one. Like for your guys', you'd probably just pick Tuara, even though you have different perspectives in there. And then they're recruited for a clandestine team, which is the conflict or the inciting incident. That's what kicks this all off. And then their goal is to gain the aristocrat's trust and stop his plot to topple the 5 museums. So that's the...
So it's kind of, the plot is to stop him, and the risk is if they fail, he topples the 5 kingdoms.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 2 in 1 in that phrase. And then one of the things I have seen specifically for fantasy books, because we do create a different world, is you always want to make sure you have something in there that hints at what kind of world you have. So I have shapeshifter, so obviously that gives you an idea of kind of what's in the story. And then I have the 5 musedoms, which everyone will assume is kind of kingdoms. So they're like, okay, so it's probably set back in more of a historical time. Yeah. There's 5 of them, so it's clearly not our world. So you always want to give something like that to kind of give an idea of where your reader is going to be in the setting, because it's not a general, like The Little Mermaid, we have under the sea and surface, so we know like it's our world, but we have the imaginary world of under the sea kind of thing.
Plus the word mermaid and
exactly, yeah. So you always want to make sure you give that concept. You don't want to give a story out and then someone who doesn't like fantasy picks it up because they think it sounds awesome, and then like you have mages and stuff, and they're like, "This is nah, I don't like this."
Yeah, like I don't like magic. Well, it's called The Magician's Cookbook. What did you think?
Exactly. Yes. People need signs.
Yeah, but your description only talked about recipes.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so that's what I came up with for mine. But let's play with your guys's.
Okay.
Well, I think the easiest way to start ours would be a young elven princess.
Yes.
And then does things. Right? That's good enough. That's very, we want it to be generic.
So goal. We need a goal. What does she want?
She wishes to become the
Queen's
accolade.
accolade.
Okay.
I mean, so does that, because nobody who sees that is going to know what they're going to be like. Wait, an accolade is like you don't become an accolade, you get accolades. But we stole that word.
Yes.
And we're like, no, you become an accolade in our world.
So that it depends. Like, you probably want to test it out on a few people to see, but to me, that screams, okay, we're in fantasy and we have queens and this position that clearly has been invented. So
Yeah.
it kind of prepares me for what kind of
Yeah.
world we're in.
You could
So I wouldn't have a problem with it.
you could change that to desires to become the successor to the queen.
Or, I mean, we do show one of her stated goals in book 1 to her father right at the beginning is she wants to become the queen's accolade and then become the youngest queen in the history of
Yeah.
Kuvia,
Okay,
or
so
the history of the realm. But
who desires to become the next queen? The
I
the
don't. I kind of
youngest
like
queen?
because her first goal is to become the
Okay.
queen's accolade, and that's really where all the risk comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from an accolade perspective. And I kind of like the idea of throwing something out there that people are like, "What's an accolade?"
Yeah, I probably didn't spell that right. This is why I like spell check and laptops, because I don't have to
You
be a
can
good
turn
speller
spell
anymore.
check on in that pen.
Oh, really? Like, how do you
Yeah.
double click it or something? Okay, so a young elven princess who desires to become the queen's accolade. Inciting incident?
So I would take the who off,
Okay,
so that she desires to become the queen's accolade.
okay.
The inciting incident would be
Um,
her assassination or the assassination attempt on her. I think
Yeah.
because that's what really. I mean, it's multiple assassination attempts, but those are what
Okay,
really get.
so like, but an assassination attempt shows that someone doesn't want her to be in
yeah,
that
I'm trying.
position, or...
I'm trying to think because we tell the story with chapter 1 right at the beginning. We tell readers like we know her mother wants her to become the queen's accolade,
Yes.
and then we find out right at the beginning people in the house killed her mother because they don't want her to be influenced to become that.
Okay.
But that's not what incites. You know, that's not an inciting incident in Tawara's life for like the rest of the story.
Yeah, I mean, what moves her on is when there's an attempt on her life that actually costs the life of her father, and she then decides, okay, I have to leave.
But that's the end of the book.
Yes.
That is the end of the book, but it's
The beginning of the book is there's the assassination attempt while she's out riding.
Yeah.
mhm.
And then because of that and the conflict and, you know, the deaths and everything, Corvin gives her, what's her name?
Athondra.
Athondra. Yes, thank you. Gives her Athondra to raise her up right or whatever, but that doesn't actually happen. And then she goes and does the traveling and stuff and gets built up in the idea that she wants to become the accolade. So I would say the assassination attempt at the beginning would be your inciting incident that kind of almost solidifies her path of like, yes, this is what I'm going to do, even if they want to stop me.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah, I'm saying so within our story, so we have a couple of different assassination attempts, and Tawara's wary of it. And this is something we talked about even like early on when we were doing content editing with you. I don't know in our story if we have at least in book 1, I don't know if in book 1 we have a specific, this thing changes everything early on in the book. It's more of a gradual process from Tawara's perspective, but from the reader's perspective, we get right at the beginning that plots within her house and the kingdom are trying to stop her.
Okay.
So it's not, and some of it is like from the reader's perspective, we're aware that people are coming after Tawara. She doesn't know who, and she's not sure why.
Okay, so conflict maybe is, but people are willing to kill to stop her.
Yeah.
So a young elven princess desires to become the queen's accolade, but people are willing to kill to stop her. I don't know, you can change people with aristocrats or...
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it would be, because it's coming from within her own house.
Yes, but you don't want to put that in the log line because that gives away
Gives
the
away too
twist.
much. Oh,
yeah. This
Well,
is the.
well, I mean, we have it right at the beginning, like the opening.
Oh, that's true.
We don't know who,
but you want to hook the reader.
yeah,
So
So maybe, but someone she trusts is willing
yeah,
to kill.
because the one of the big things in our write up here is she doesn't know by the end of the book, she doesn't know who to trust. First, she doesn't trust Athandra when she meets her. By the end of the book, the only person she trusts is Athandra.
Okay, so but someone she trusts is willing to kill to stop her, or maybe someone within her circle, her trusted circle, but someone within her trusted circle seems to be willing. Because you want to put maybe a little bit of doubt there, because that kind of gives the mystery. The whole thing within it is like, who's doing this?
Yeah.
Why are they doing it? So you want to convey that mystery in your log line as well.
I think by leaving it, by writing the tagline log line from Athandra's perspective, she has no idea who's trying to kill her.
You mean Tawara?
Tawara?
Yeah, sorry, Tawara. So I think writing the log line would be
From hers.
best from her, because that leaves way more mystery for the someone who's interested in reading to go, ooh, that sounds cool or whatever.
Okay, so a young elven princess desires to become the queen's accolade, but someone seems willing to kill to stop her. And then we have stakes, which is kind of where the book may not have as strong a hold there, because there really isn't, like, if she doesn't become accolade, there is no overhanging sword that's going to cut down and be like, oh,
Yeah.
the world has ended because of this. So we might dig down more to personal stakes of why it's so important to her. If she doesn't get it, what will it mean to her?
Yeah, and that's where, from a personal perspective for her, she will fail the dream that her mother had for her and not have the life that she, for her personally, she'll either end dead or having to give up completely on or not fulfilling the dream that her mother had for her before she died.
Okay.
But I don't know how to say that.
Someone seems willing to kill to stop her and ruin her chance at fulfilling her deceased mother's, I don't know, will?
Or you could just say,
Well, I mean, does that
ruin the chance at her fulfilling her destiny.
So fulfill her destiny kind of seems vague.
Yeah.
Just because we're like, what's the destiny? Is it, I mean, her goal is to become the queen's accolade, but is that her destiny necessarily? So we might want to boil that down a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm trying to think from it, because she wants to be the queen's accolade, and then there are people who will kill her to stop her. I'm like, just that in itself, like, puts stakes out there altogether of she's trying to become the accolade, and then there are people who are going to kill her to stop her from doing that.
Yes. I'd say I could see where that's stakes, but it's not necessarily as compelling stakes as it could be. Just because you think of that all over the world. I mean, somebody wants to become the next king of England, and there are people willing to kill or lie or whatever to gain the throne.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make it a unique story in that aspect. So I'd maybe add something to tag on at the end just to kind of give it that, I don't know. Like if you say ruin her chance to like fulfill her mother's last dying wish or something like that, it gives it more of a I guess.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like maybe it's the order, like being out of order of it's like
having to do protagonist goal conflict stakes instead of stakes conflict.
Yeah, where we're saying I guess the out of order is we're saying she wants to be the accolade, and people will kill her to stop her. And if she doesn't become the accolade, well, it's because people killed her. And then we're saying, and she didn't fulfill she didn't fulfill her destiny.
Okay.
But
so,
it would be like more something along the lines of she wants to fulfill the destiny her mother gave, or the destiny set out by her mother to become the queen's accolade. So the risk there is failing her mother. But then the like overall stakes are, there are those who are willing to kill to stop her, or to those willing to kill her to stop her.
So, a young elven princess desires to become the queen's accolade, but someone seems determined to stop her, even if it means her death.
Yeah, something like that.
If you want to, like, boil it down even more there.
Yeah, where it's more what she's up against right now is escaping those who are trying to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're trying to kill her is they want to prevent her becoming the next accolade.
Okay. Yeah, so then that could work. We could boil it down to that. The only thing is the someone that needs to be more specific. Like, I don't know. This doesn't apply to your book, but like, rebels in the, outskirts of the country or whatever. It needs something. Now, I know you can't really say specifically, but you could say like lurking shadows or something that kind of gives someone a sense of tone and curiosity.
Well, like I said, that right at the beginning, we find out it's someone in her own house.
Yeah. But from her point of view, it's someone from the east. So maybe we could use that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I don't know, like when you were saying write it from her perspective, but from Tawara's perspective, she doesn't know what the reader knows. So as the reader, you get here's the stuff going on, and you're like, she doesn't know this. She doesn't know there's a threat within her house. She doesn't know, it's like a movie that opens and the explosion happens and the bad guy's right there. And then you jump to somebody else and they're going along and they're doing these things, and you're going, no, you can't go in there because the bad guy's in there. I know that. You don't. So if you write it from the perspective of the main character, they may not know the world is going to be destroyed if I fail. But because we're an outsider watching it, we know if they fail, the world's going to be destroyed. And they don't know it. And you got to be like, hey, you can't make that decision because if you do, the world's going to be destroyed.
Yes.
So because Tawara doesn't know that, like, we need to convey that sense at least that's what I would think. We need to convey that to the reader, that the purpose of the book is you as the reader are going to experience this. Whereas Tawara won't, at least for a while.
Mm-hmm. So, so you could go with person from the east, you could go with someone she trusts. But I was trying to kind of come up with a middle ground. You could just say, like, describe the type of person that would want it. So, like, an ambitious competitor or a ruthless aristocrat or something like that. So you're kind of like the same thing you're doing with the protagonist. You're doing an adjective and a noun to describe the type of person that would be willing to do this. And then maybe it leaves a little bit more mystery, but also gives readers an idea of what they're facing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think just how to add a level of within this short statement, just with an adjective or something, define it in a way that, like, someone doesn't seem strong enough, or and even like Tawara doesn't know until they capture Teth, and she's already had an assassination attempt. Duchesne is dead, and now Teth is in prison. She doesn't know that that any of this has happened because she wanted to be the accolade until Teth says it in the prison cells. By then, there's already been 2 assassination attempts and 3 deaths in her life.
Yeah.
So we as the reader know all of this is going on and know the stakes of, hey, they want to kill you because you want to be the Accolade, and you're going to become Accolade, and you have no idea that they're trying to kill you for this until Teth says it, like 10 chapters into the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're getting a little too specific. This needs to be a general line that is
Yeah.
going to hook the reader.
Yeah, but it's the whoever the someone is needs to be stronger than just someone.
I agree.
Yeah. So what's an adjective or a noun for like someone who's two-faced? Because that's what we're really kind of trying to describe Corvin here. So you
Without
you
without
you want
giving
the idea that it's someone. You want to give the reader the idea that you have to second guess every single character in this book. So when we said someone she seems to trust, it was the idea of like, okay, everyone in this circle is suspect.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea that you're wanting to bring across is like, look, like someone you don't think would do it is doing it. Because that's part of your lure to the story of like, hey, you know, like we got to figure out all of these things we're trying to answer.
Deceitful.
Deceitful.
A deceitful. Yeah, I had a word to go right after that, and I've lost it.
It happens.
Duplicitous.
That could work.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there was a way like to keep it vague of saying like just but there are those who would betray her to stop that from happening even if it leads to her death.
Yes.
Like something like that way we don't know who those people are that are going, but it's got to be somebody close because of betrayal.
So what if we call them like a duplicitous mastermind?
Oh, he is that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
something
get
to
that-
kind of show he's a good opponent. Like, you know, you don't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah, and we get that in the prologue. Whoever it is like, they're like, no, we can't kill the Baron yet.
Yes.
We're in this for the long game. We have to wait for another 110 years, you know,
That is a long
before
time.
we carry out the next phase of the plan.
Yeah. Okay, so roughly speaking, obviously, this is going to have to be honed multiple times. Mine was too. So, a young elven princess desires to become the queen's accolade, but a duplicitous mastermind seems determined to stop her, even if it means her death. So, something like that, more or less. Like I said, you'll have to throw around more
Yeah.
words and play around with sentence structure and stuff, but
Yeah.
that kind of boils down to the main whole plot
Duplicitous
of
and
it.
mastermind immediately make me think of like, is this Sherlock Holmes? Is it Sherlock Holmes and elves? You know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you might want to work on that combination, but yeah, something like that. Mhm.
Yeah, I was thinking Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
The guy they describe as the Spider.
Hmm.
I can't remember his name, but anyway, some of the descriptive words given to him because they would
Ah.
like fit the same character traits. Only
Yeah.
the spider in Song of Ice and Fire is, you know, he's not doing all of this for himself.
There you go.
He's very cunning, very intelligent, pulls all these webs in the background and everything, but he's not
Yes.
doing like none of it is completely self-serving to him. It's
Yeah.
just to pull the strings across, you know, pull all the little threads across all the different places.
Hmm.
You know, he has his little birds that go out and his little birds sing songs to him. And it's all his spies that are everywhere.
Yes.
But the result of none of his actions are he gets the power.
Yeah. Whereas with
Whereas
Corvin,
Corvin,
he actually wants it.
yeah. So he's like the spider, only his end goal is he's going to catch everybody in the web.
Yeah. The spider with ambitions.
Yes.
So there you go. That's your homework. You got to go research him and see if any of his adjectives work for your log line. But
Yeah, I like the direction it's going though.
yeah,
And we started with nothing.
yes.
And started with where I'm like, wait a minute, we wrote this book. This sucks.
No,
we wrote
no,
it bad.
no. It's a good book. Don't believe him. Go buy it. But yeah, so I don't figure a tagline's a lot harder to come up with. It's like here, brainstorm, we can throw ideas around, and you might be able to do that with the tagline too, but it's more, I don't know, for me, like I have to go through and figure out like, okay, where's all the emotional places, what's things that are going to pique people's interest, and then I just start a list of like all the different phrases it could be, and then try them out on people
Yeah.
and see where I go from there. So, but it's a lot of sitting quietly and thinking. I don't know if it would work as well on a podcast.
Yeah.
So that might be you guys'
Yeah, that's how I'm
homework
like,
to
wait a
figure
minute.
that out.
We're writing this down on paper. I'm like, we got to keep talking into the microphones while we're writing this
Yes.
down.
Hence, I'm writing while you're talking.
Yeah. So here's a question, and I kind of thought about this while doing the tagline or log line. If you have a story idea, you haven't started writing yet, but you just like, I have this idea for a story. I was thinking to spell out the process of your story. If you can come up with a log line right at the beginning, you could potentially be like, this is my whole story. Now I just have to write it. But if you can come up with a log line for an idea, you can come up with an entire story off of that log line.
Yes, yeah. So it's the idea. It's actually a premise, which premise and logline are basically the same thing, except for premise is specifically for the writer, and a logline is specifically to get somebody else interested in the book. But it's the same idea. You can use your logline for a premise and vice versa. The premise just isn't as picky. Like here, we're working really hard with the words. Exactly which words do we want to use?
Yeah.
And a premise, you don't have to worry as much about it. You can go back and refine it as a logline later if you want. But yeah, it's always a great way. If you're not an outliner, but you just want to have an idea for your story, you just lay out, okay, this is my protagonist. This is what she wants or he wants. This is the inciting incident and the conflict that ensues, and this is what's at stake.
Yeah.
And once you get those, like it's super easy to write a book off of that.
Relatively super easy. It's super easy. Write a book off that. How long have you been working on your super easy book?
Oh, well, okay, so it's actually pretty easy. I'm lucky in that I know a lot of people have a hard time putting words to a page. I don't have that problem. I'm really good at putting out a story. Like I wrote basically a 200,000 word novel in maybe 4 months, which is about 50,000 words a month, which that's what everybody strives for NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people to get. And that's not super difficult for me to get, which is fine. But where I struggle is the editing side. I'm a perfectionist. So it takes me forever to go back and be like, no, that's not perfect. Or no, I could make that word better. Or no, I can make that arc stronger.
Yeah.
So that's what really catches me. It took me 4 months to write this giant book. And it's taken me, I don't know, I think I'm at 2.5 years now on still editing it. Which I know part of it is just me being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So apparently it is. If you do this, it is really easy to write a book.
It can be, yeah.
Jared,
but
we've been doing it wrong.
there
The
are
whole
people
time.
on the other side though that they take like a year to write a book, but they only spend 2 months editing because the way they write it is so thought out and put together that they don't have to go
Yeah.
back as much. So it's just a different process,
Yeah.
depending on how you do it.
But like I hadn't thought about that from a premise and a log line. That your log line is, you could say your log line is a marketing version of your premise.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, same thing. So if you already have a premise, you can just sharpen it to make it a log line. If you have a log line, you can use that as your premise. I mean, it's still going to be vague like this one is, but you as the author know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
it'll still keep you on target. You'll know when you're writing a scene, this is my character and this is how she acts and this is what she wants and this is what's in her way, and you'll be able to keep on track that way.
So I think this is where we've struggled with writing our books, and coming up with, well, what's the premise of book one? Well, we came up with the premise of the whole story.
Yes.
And then when we started writing it, we were like, this is really long. Like it has a lot going on. And we broke it into multiple books because it was long.
Yeah.
Not-
You had a series premise instead of a story premise.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was, this is the whole, we're telling a story. We're going to write 5 books that is one story, and we have that premise. And actually we originally started, we're going to write a book.
Yes.
We're going to write a book. This is the premise of that book. And so what we are writing, what we have planned out, the premise is like for that whole thing.
Yeah.
So then when we break it down and say, well, what's book 1 about? Like the beginning.
It's the setup.
Yeah. What's book 2 about? The next part of
The
the
inciting
beginning.
incident.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like take each plot structure and just make it a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that does make it, because we've been breaking it up. What we've done is we took I could give a log line for like our whole thing pretty easily, I think.
Yeah.
And then we've just had to say, well, where's a good like break point, as though it would be like, well, this is the end of a chapter. It would be a 200,000 word chapter, but it's the end of a chapter where we're like, dun, 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 the end of the chapter. And we're going to write the next chapter.
It's very episodic.
Yeah, it's almost kind of more like a serial, if you guys are familiar with that. So it's each section is given out individually, and it's supposed to be kind of a story in itself, but it's part of a whole story. So it's not
Yeah.
gonna feel complete until
Yeah.
you get to the end.
Yeah, like there isn't in our book 1, there is not in any way, shape, or form a beginning, middle, and end. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we're writing everything to our entire story.
Yeah.
And that's like, even what we're book 2 has a little bit more of that, some build up and resolution to it. But even it is still written to the overarching story.
Yeah. And I think that works as long as you give the readers some sense of closure and satisfaction. It's when you get to the end of the book and like I turn the page and like it's like half the book is missing.
Yeah.
I've read those books where it's like you get to the end and it's like ending in the middle of a story. Like, hey, I went to the store and I bought this and I saw so and so and then we're just done.
Yeah.
And like, no, you've got to at least tell me the conversation you had with so and so. You don't have to tell me you left the store yet,
Yeah.
but end there, whatever. So I think as long as you have those, that's really in serials what they rely on ending on, so that it feels sort of satisfying, but then everybody knows there's more to come.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, that's one of the reasons, although with book 2, we have not reached our goal for getting, and for we were supposed to have book 2 and book 3 coming out already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, gosh, dang it.
Yeah.
We set a really aggressive
Yeah.
timeline for ourselves, and life, just happened and threw everything in the
Yeah.
way.
That's why you're doing that. When you guys first told me what your guys' timeline was, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be supportive, but like I wouldn't hold my breath because I know how many things go wrong or just come up that you don't realize.
Yeah. Well,
That
we
takes more
started
time.
last spring after book, like we were into it, like and doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to like early summer, just a few months in. And then all of a sudden it's like everything went haywire, with kids and hail damage and re-roofing, like
Yes. Yeah.
stuff that is on the scale of weeks or months that interferes with everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And we're like, oh my gosh. It just keeps getting in the way of what I really want to do.
That's
But just saying that from that, the reason we had that really aggressive timeline was so that we could be like, yeah, book 1 is not beginning, middle, end. We're introducing you
yes.
to the beginning of our overall story. So we've got to get book 2 right there, and then book 3 right there, and get through the first several books So people can read and be like, okay, I've got a whole complete beginning, middle, end of this section,
Yes.
you know, with real resolution, and I'm not waiting years for that to come out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. But you guys are actually doing pretty good because you already have. Do you have book 3 written already?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well-
that's what I thought. I mean,
I
like, I,
mean,
know you
there's
have to
a-
do edits and stuff.
Well, we have to do a bunch of rewrites to align with
Yeah.
all the stuff we changed in book 1 and are now rewriting in book 2.
Yes. Yes. That's the hard part of, writing a series is you want to get ahead so that you can get them out quickly, but then you change one thing at the beginning and it's like, oh, got to go back and fix it all.
Yeah.
So that's hard.
Yeah, it's a challenge. But now, like we haven't ever done an exercise like this before of log line, tagline type thing.
No.
And I'm like, this like clarity
Yeah.
of there's so many things we need to do better, Jared.
No, you'll get it. That's the thing about being an author is that there's always more to learn. And the more you learn, the harder it is.
Yeah.
Because then you're aware of all the things you didn't do that you should do now. And I've experienced that myself.
Yeah. But I think now having like gone through this a little bit, like I think I can. Well, we're going to keep this.
Keep my
Be
scribbles.
like,
Don't mind the misspellings.
We've got to start. And hey, anybody listening, you just got to hear the process of how we're coming up with the actual log line for a book 1 that's been out for a year. And now we have a log line for it.
Yep.
Ish. We
Yeah.
still got to edit
rough
it.
draft.
So it'll be ready in about a year and a half.
Hopefully not that long. You got to get
Yeah.
book 2 out there too.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. It's been, very interesting and educational topic to dive into.
Good. Yeah. I was hoping it'd be a fun one. And then also, if there's readers out there, they can kind of see what we do behind the curtain just to give them that one sentence to ask if they'll just look at our book.
Yeah. See how
'cause-
long it takes to put down one sentence? Oh,
Yeah. So we put a lot of effort into it. So, hopefully they'll kind of appreciate that and thank the author the next time they get to meet one. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, this is awesome. Thanks for putting the work into it.
yeah. And thank them by buying their books and giving it a review.
Yes. Reviews are very important.
Well, thanks, Liz. We appreciate you being here with us today.
Yeah, thank
And where can people go to sign up and get your newsletter and learn more cool stuff like this?
Yeah, so they can go to lizverity.com and that will take you to my blog post where you can see a lot of these little writing tidbits. You can also sign up for my newsletter. You could I'm actually doing a bi-weekly writing advice email now. I'm having to back off a little bit on that to focus on my book. But I'm still going to be throwing those out there every other week. And then I have a quarterly newsletter if you want to keep in touch with what I'm doing on my own writing journey.
Very cool. So go to lizverity.com, find her, sign up, learn more cool stuff right along with us. Well, thanks for being with us today. We will have more to come, more updates on our book. We'll have Liz back in the future with us again with more
Yes.
learning from Liz. Till next time, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.